Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this particular session. It's primarily a CrowdStrike exclusive session, and it gives me immense pleasure to, call upon the speakers. The session title is Evolution, Progression, and Adoption of MDR, and we are joined by Mr. Vivek Srivastav, Director Sales, Mid-Market India and SAR CrowdStrike, and along with the session moderator, Mr. Vinayak Godse, Senior Vice President, DSCI.
Thank you, Jatin, and thanks Vivek for joining us today for this very interactive, engaging one-to-one discussion on some of the key challenge that we see industries facing, not only in India but other parts of the globe as well. So there is a definitely chronic shortage of the cybersecurity professional that we see in India and other parts of the globe as well. While we are facing those problems, but adversarial tradecraft is definitely improving quite significantly. So you need to be on your toe in terms of managing your security, basically. So and if you have to do that, you need that human effort to do very proactive, forward-leaning kind of a threat hunting exercises, because preventive measures may not be working in the way that we have been now in the age that we have been now managing entire our infrastructure, our application, our systems, basically. So to help organization doing these threat hunting operations, basically, and securing their endpoints, and more importantly, helping them with managing the detection and response, because increasingly the security focus is shifting from uh, protection and prevention to detection and response, basically. And detection response is a larger, bigger operations, basically, and this operation needs a skillful kind of effort, and sometimes you may not get those skills. So are there some ways and evaluations and engineering ideas, basically, which has evolved in terms of solving this problem, is something that we will be trying to discuss in this particular session. So the key focus that we'll be seeing is what are those technology evaluations, engineering evaluations happening to help organization with management of detection and response, and how exactly the endpoint protection ecosystem is helping you to have that enterprise level detection and response, and in a very any manage and govern fashion, basically. So Vivek, starting this conversation, and thanks for joining us, and you and your CrowdStrike team, because you have been leader in
Pleasure
this
is
field.
all mine. Pleasure
Yeah,
is all mine, Vinayak.
yeah. And you are leader in this particular field, and we would certainly like to understand the challenges that you see the endpoint security program of an organization, basically, and especially in the current context of digitization and the kind of pandemic that we are seeing. So what kind of challenge that you see in endpoint security program for any organization, be it a mid-size or largest enterprise?
I think Vinayak, I'll probably start with talking about a typical state that organizations have been asked to maintain from security posture perspective. Historically, the organizations have been trained, and the way they have been probably talked about security program to be run is to create a kind of a preventive security state for them, right? That primarily is that we'll try and prevent something from happening. It's a paradigm shift which is happening from prevention state now to having the capabilities across active detection and active response to that. If you look at the domain, within the entire cybersecurity piece, the domain that endpoint part is, there the challenges have been that the way endpoint security technologies have been defined till now, they've been very, very reactive. They have primarily been designed to react to a typical threat kind or typical attack type or typical event type, and that's how they have been primarily designed. So by the virtue of it, they became very, very reactive, right? So it becomes very, very difficult for those reactive technologies to be effective in the current era, where the adversaries are so very active, they're using modern tools. What is also kind of very evident, if you look at last 5 to 6 years of the major attacks and analyze those, it's very, very, very evident, is the modus operandi that they use, the tool sets that they use, the tactics that they use is way more advanced than what it used to be. That means your traditional endpoint program which is designed to pick up a known threat, kind of fails there. It started to failing the organizations per se. Attackers also became so very, smart that they started using some of those system processes, those system tools, which are natively available on the endpoints to carry out their business, to maneuver their way into the environment. So it, of course, kind of required a different set of eyes, different set of capabilities, from the endpoint security program to be, kind of re-looked at. If you look at the current, way, the way we look at endpoint security program these days, it's primarily improving the visibility beyond just the threat, improving the visibility of what all is happening on the endpoint, right? What are the typical processes? What are the typical, activities or events that we are seeing? And use that data set, which is available to you, to make certain, in-time decisions, or rather, I would say swift decisions, to decide if there are certain deviations, from a standard, to decide if there's something malicious which is cooking. Try and pick it up early. And that's the reason, why we are saying that, early detection is very, very, crucial. Because if you're able to pick those up early, you're able to respond to those in time, you're able to, kind of many a times prevent the attack itself. So the response becomes the prevention mechanism these days. So I would say the endpoint security program, also seeing a challenge of, the skill gap, which is there, as you were talking about initially as well. The skill gap
Yeah.
in terms of, if there are, alerts, if there are, inputs coming from the endpoint, do we have the enough skill set available to be able to hunt within those and say that, okay, this particular piece needs some attention. This particular piece needs a different action, right? That's another piece that I see. So that those are the typical challenges that you see from the endpoint perspective. One is the design itself, the way it has been designed, and the second, the skill set that you need now to run with the entire larger endpoint security program.
Yeah, and and the attention to endpoint is why, because endpoint are the one who participate in transactions, right? Processing the transactions, and many things are emanating from the endpoint, and especially in the pandemic and this hybrid workforce that we are into, the endpoint defense is very important, and defense now doesn't involve only the protection and only the prevention part. Defense is increasingly look now more is a part of a detection response as well, because out there millions of operating environment, the systems may behave sanely, but there could be one out of million thing which could probably disturb the security of that particular
Absolutely,
system.
absolutely.
Unless you actively look at what could go wrong, it will be very difficult for you to really create that security environment. And most of the breaches that we have recently
Exactly.
seen is one of many, and I think it's like a needle in a haystack, and people are able to exploit
Exactly.
that. That's what the advanced ecosystem is
Exactly.
going. So now the endpoint detection and response is a capability, but at the enterprise level, you need to make sure that you have this managed detection and response basically. So help us understand uh, at enterprise level, if you have to really deploy this managed detection response capability, what it really means basically. And then next question is ki how the ADR kind of, because ADR is more now established capability, most of the organization been using it, how ADR feeds back to MDR basically.
So let me probably answer this in two parts, and I would answer the second part first, the EDR part first, Vinayak, as per my understanding. See, EDR is a very, very integral part of the whole managed detection and response mechanism.
Yeah,
Primarily, what you're doing with the EDR, you're creating a base for you to have a larger data set for you, right?
yeah,
If you're creating a visibility across, all the crown jewels that you're talking about. It could be your endpoint, desktops, laptops, it could be your servers, cloud workloads, containers, right? So you're creating a data set to have that visibility across, this infrastructure. Number one, that's what EDR does for you. Second thing that EDR does, this data set spans beyond the threads and looks into various processes and events which are happening on that endpoint. Now, when you're looking at so many things, on top of it, you're adding analytics to pick up which are the ones that needs attention. That needs some kind of action for you. So now you created a base, for you with the EDR tool. On top of it, now you're adding the capability in response. You have got the data set, you've got the rules available, analytics available, that if there is something detected, I need to have some response action. So EDR tool also gives you some level of response, capability as well. The problem with this is just the technology piece which is delivered as an EDR to you, right? If you look at the organizations, there are still two other areas where they would need support. Number one is the skill set now to manage a advanced tool like EDR, which is giving you a lot of data, right? You'll have to make sense of that data. You'll have to ensure that you're not missing anything, right? And you'll also have to ensure that everything is covered there. The core part, why I would say that, you would need to move beyond EDR and look at MDR primarily is the speed at which you need to look at it, right? So you got the data set, you got the response capabilities, but now you need a team, which can look at it and look at it fast. And then on that basis, you start taking, action on it. So what MDR does, looking at the EDR as a base platform, it now adds the capability for you that you're not missing anything. There are no blind spots for you. Everything that your EDR tells you, there is a team of expert which does that analysis, looks at everything that is being told to you, and they do the triaging, they do the investigation so that nothing is missed out. Now, you're also not left wanting that who will take action. When you go to MDR functionality, they will also give you the capability of taking action. They will do it on your behalf. If something needs attention, they will immediately take that action as well, in terms of whether it's containment of that machine, isolation of that machine, or to certain extent the remediation of that machine, right? If something has to be removed from the machine, something has to be changed on that machine, right? So now what you're doing is with MDR, you're making full use of not only your EDR technology, but you're also expanding your capability by bringing in the skill set, bringing in the processes, and bringing in the outcome focused, actions to get you the value of that technology. So primarily, you're covering yourself that yes, if something is seen, I also have the process to take action on that immediately with the MDR piece.
So for organization, and especially who is managing security, and you must have seen the different type of the organization, right? There will be some organization which are very transaction focused organization like a BFSI sector, and there will be some may not be transaction focused, but they will be largely looking at the data that are sitting on their different devices basically. So my question is like, how this different type of the organization really devise their strategy for deploying this kind of capabilities basically.
So primarily, I would say, two, three things, which are to be considered, when it comes to, adoption, if you see, from different set of, customers or different set of companies or organizations who are adopting to MDR. There are two lines that I see. Primarily, number one is, their own in-house capability, right? A very, very large organization which has kind of built a very, very large, IT operations, security operations team. They have got the processes defined, they've got the skill set, they can afford these skill sets, right? For them primarily, they can still look at EDR solution capabilities of those, and then leverage their own team to deliver the managed part of it, the services part of it, the response part of it, right? But there are of course organizations which are very lean on IT. They are very lean on IT security. Very difficult for them to kind of have a large response team or forensics team for that matter. For them, it makes a lot of sense now to look at an organization which can actually do it for them, right? Outsource it to them rather than them making investments into a heavy security operations center or multiple other tools for them, and then have the right skill set to do it. They should rather look at a vendor who has the capability, who is able to deliver and promise the outcomes, and has been delivering the outcomes in that space. Outsource it to them, and lean on their capability, right? And then they can go back and focus on their core business for that matter. There
So
are
you
third set of organizations. Sorry, you're good.
please go ahead. So you complete.
Now, as I was saying, there were third set of organizations also, which are also looking at enhancing their existing, security operation capability. Those are in the areas of, you can say, incident response capabilities,
Yeah.
right? We know that we are doing good job with our existing security tools. We are making sense of it. We are able to look at the detections which are coming in. We are able to take action. But from the incident response perspective, we want some more capability to be brought in, from a skill set perspective. So those are the also kind of organizations who are looking at MDR adoption. So these primarily three set of organizations that the way they look at it.
Yeah. So you talked about outcome, right? So can we really define the outcome metrics for MDR program and for various different type of the organization at various different way that they are approaching to this and they would be approaching basically, and then there will be some organizations spread across the sectors as well. So would it be possible to devise a kind of a common minimum metrics for success of MDR program?
I think a right MDR vendor should probably be able to do that. The whole purpose of MDR is to give you a definite capability on your response, right? You're able to look at the detection, triage it, and respond to it. And another challenge that needs to be solved there with the MDR is the speed at which you do it. Unless and until you address that, right? You will be defeating the purpose of having an MDR solution. So I primarily look at two different matrices, right? That needs to be kind of addressed by an MDR program. The first and foremost thing is the time to detect,
Yeah.
is the capability of the platform, MDR platform for you, is giving you improved time to detect results, outcomes, right? Is that sufficient for you? Probably not. You've detected something early, but it's of no use unless and until you take action and ensure that it's completely you're completely out of it, right? That's where the other matrix comes in, which is time to remediate, right? How quickly did you remediate once you detected something, right, or took the response action on that, right? I think these two matrices are very, very crucial for any MDR platform. A typical MDR platform should be able to give you that matrices, and in fact so much so that it should be able to kind of put numbers there right on the entire services period, that on this service period this was the outcome that we delivered, and this is exactly how the MDR solution should also be evaluated.
And this time typically defined in what, hours or days or minutes? How these times?
I wouldn't say in hours. I wouldn't say in days at all. Vinayak, I would say look at our adversaries. How fast are they carrying out their
Yeah,
businesses,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We look at that breakout time, right? If you talk about Russian adversaries, they do it in less than an hour, right? Chinese talks about a few hours. Chinese adversaries. So anything within an hour, for time to remediate, I think should be a good metrics. Good metrics.
And time to detect should be significantly less compared to
Should be within a minute or something.
yeah, yeah. And but now making that happen is you have your EDR and feeding back to MDR in one organization, right? But how do you make sure that there's something out there is going and something happening there, and probably that is probably will create a security issue. So how do you make sure that with one deployment you understand everything which could go wrong basically? So is it possible with one deployment to doing that, or other you need to understand what is happening globally? So how that architecture works basically?
If I take our example from architecture perspective, see, our architecture is primarily leverages cloud, and the analytics at clouds. That's
Yeah,
where we do the analytics of the telemetry information that comes in from different environments that we monitor.
yeah,
So if I am monitoring an environment, let's say somewhere in Middle East or somewhere in EMEA, right? And I've seen certain observation, I've seen some detection, right? And I need to take action. The analytics which is working, the engine which is working, the big data analytics which is working on that detection is the same analytics engine which is common to all our customers. That means
yeah,
if I've seen it once, that means now all our customers are protected against those, because the analytics is common to it, and that's the strength of it. That means if you're able to see something at some place, you should not be able to do that, you should not be required to do that exercise all over again. You should be able to replicate that intel from one place to other places without losing even a single second. And that's where the back end of the analytics comes in handy,
Yeah.
which delivers
Yeah.
this intels.
So let me define this little bit in a very generic term, and correct me if I'm going wrong here. Basically, so one is there's a system which is a kind of platform, which is a cloud-based platform, and multiple clients of you have been mm, consuming the capability that you are bringing together, basically. And they are not only consuming the capability, but they are also leveraging the experiences of all other clients as well, basically. So apart from consuming capability, they are leveraging from others as well, actually. And while
Absolutely.
they are leveraging and probably taking some action, they are contributing back to the platform so others can benefit there. So you are being there
Ab-
benefits other, and others being there benefits you, basically. Is this
Absolutely.
a right representation of
Your understanding is absolutely correct, Vinayak. In fact, the term crowd strike, that comes in from the premise
yeah,
that the intel is crowdsourced.
yeah, yeah,
You know, if I talk about a number, today, close to about 25 plus million, such endpoints talk to at least our cloud, right? Our analytics engine, our big data analytics, and about a trillion events is what we process every single day. So for us to leverage that information, goes as a either machine learning training to the endpoint or an active intel, to the platform.
yeah. I mean, I think that is how the security is entirely moving. So the response is now collective response, more like a
Absolutely,
collective actions and collective response, and that is how the entire architectural security is moving. And the good to see this is operational level you are able to achieve in a way that somebody can even define the metrics in minutes and in hours, basically, and you are able to do that because there is a collective force working to achieve that, basically, and the technology architecture is trying to bring that together, basically. So now
absolutely.
now my question is, the digitization what we are seeing is the it's a increasing footprint, but footprint is not only increasing in a very conventional way, right? You are going to cloud, actually, and most of the workload is now moving to cloud. Some workload which has been reserved until now not to be going to cloud is also now moving to cloud. So in typical environment, people say that core application services will not go to cloud, but I'm seeing that also happening significantly on cloud. So in the cloud environment, how does you expand the coverage of this program? And this is very important aspect, because anything, if you are not able to cover anything which could potentially create security problem, if you're not able to extend the coverage in a conventional on-prem manner and also in a cloud manner, you will create a lot of those kind of gaps which will create a lot of problems for you in the future. So in the cloud environment, how this MDR extend its coverage to all those resources which are moving increasingly to the cloud?
No, I think a fair ask there, Vinayak. If the organizations are adopting cloud, if they are leveraging cloud, if they are moving to cloud, security should also be. It should be ubiquitous, extension into the different environments that the organization has. What you're able to achieve in terms of security outcomes for your infrastructure, on-premise infrastructure, unless and until you have the same level of assurance, for cloud, why would you feel safe, moving to cloud, right? And that's the consideration that we also look at. So one that we at least believe that any of the EDR and MDR services that we are talking about, or the tools that we are talking about, should be able to extend the same level of capabilities into these environments. And I'm not saying specifically to one particular cloud environment. It can be hybrid environment, it can be multi-cloud environment, it can be mix of their own data centers and the cloud and all. So it should be natural extension of the capabilities of on-premise into the cloud. Number one. Second part should also be to look at the challenges which are specific to cloud also, right? You very clearly looked at the challenges which are specific to the endpoints and in traditional ways, right? I think secure remote working was one challenge which got added in last couple of years. From cloud perspective, there are other few challenges which will also come in. The challenges like How do you ensure you have visibility to what all is running in cloud for you? In terms of workloads, how the environment looks like in terms of containers, uh, the images which are being continuously built on cloud, are those safe? A pre-runtime level and runtime level threats, are you able to provide those coverages as well? So I think the a good MDR solution should not only extend whatever controls that you have here on premise, it should be able to let you extend that to cloud, and not only extend, it should also enhance that coverage to the areas like images or containers environments, or to runtime or pre-runtime level threats as well. I think that's another piece which is very very crucial from cloud perspective. And at CrowdStrike, we believe that if we are going to customer and saying that, okay, we will, you can transfer your risk to us as an MDR vendor, I will not say that no, I will not do it for cloud. Now I would say I will do it for cloud also, right? And that's where you give that assurance to the customers.
Yeah.
But yes, the technology should be able to let you build that capability.
Yeah.
Very crucial cloud
Another
part as well.
another another thing when I'm picking up the question that somebody put it here. So when you say manage detection and response, and especially response side, and most of the time people say "Okay, response can be managed only if you know how to respond to a particular scenario, basically. So that's why people talk
Exactly.
about creating run books and then probably automating that, basically. Now zero days are becoming common nowadays. So can MDR cater your response for zero day attacks as well? Can it really serve the organization's interest in terms of responding well when they are hit by zero day?
I think absolutely yes. That's the entire purpose of an MDR solution. Not only you're managing the detection, not only that you're managing the response. Let me probably take a minute, Vinayak, to look at how industry looks at a response. Right? Typically, if you see the traditional MDR vendors, they will talk about, from them, response is something where they are able to contain a machine where the detection is coming, right? Or isolate that machine where a detection is coming. But does the job end there? Probably not, right? You will have to ensure that machine comes back into the business. For that, you will have to take remediation actions, which are primarily not the standard offering on traditional MDR solutions. What we believe, that the MDR solutions comprehensiveness will come only if they promise that not only that they'll be able to take response of those isolation, containment, and all that, and pretty much many of it as automated piece, right? But they should go beyond that and say that I will own, or I will take the responsibility of doing the remediation also on that machine. And when I'm talking about remediation, I'm not talking about wiping that machine off and re-imaging it. I'm talking about those surgical, removal of the artifacts of the attacks, whether it's a zero-day attack, whether it's a ransomware attack, or whether it's any typical kind of attack. So that's the kind of natural extension of an MDR, traditional MDR, into a modern day, MDR. That the
Yeah.
capability of remediation is very, very crucial.
Yeah. And what we talk about, like this would also probably add to this capability. Like if you find somewhere something going wrong, basically, then uh, with this capability, you could definitely map the behaviors, basically. And if at one organization you find something different, and probably it could create a kind of a unknown issue, probably all other systems can really know that okay, this is something seems to be unknown, and probably this could be possible zero day, basically. So this could be also adding to
Absolutely.
that capability. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very core to it, and we at least at CrowdStrike, we get into these hands-on combat with the adversaries in many of such cases where we are doing the incident response and all that. All that intel comes in, from these responders, that also goes back to the platform, for our other customers also to leverage, right? And that's the idea, right? If you have seen something somewhere, if you have experienced something somewhere, how do you use it at the other places? Make sure that you're able to deliver a better assurance, better outcome to the organizations.
Yeah. So, Vivek, I think we discuss about the organizations and how it suits to different type of the organization and how they are adopting, basically. But the key part from adoption is basically there are existing SOC program which are run, right? And on top of that, people are now running SOAR as well. So how does this fit
Right.
into the SOC? It will it be becoming a part of the SOC, or it will be supporting SOC, or it could be separate? So how does that really happens at a ground level actually?
Actually, you can look at it two ways, Vinayak. It can be, for an organization which, has, you can say, where the security operation practice is in infancy, right? For them, this can be a very, very comprehensive piece. MDR can actually deliver because MDR also delivers the platform where you see what's all happening in your environment, right? It's part of the offering for MDR. So it can be their first, can they or initially start at a typical SOC,
Even
because it
even
covers almost.
before going to SOC, they can look at this as a capability, right? So
Absolutely, because
okay.
80% of your crown jewels are these endpoint servers,
Yeah, yeah,
workloads, and that all
yeah,
gets covered from MDR perspective also. So
yeah,
this can
yeah,
be your starting point. You can cover almost 80% of the ground. Balance of it, which is the other components of the network piece of it, or other security areas like say day-to-day operations in terms of upkeep, updates, patching. These are the kind of things which can SOC can address. So it can work as a starting point, and it can also enhance the capability of existing SOC by bringing in the response capability, forensic capabilities, the skill set of hunting, right? Threat hunting,
yeah, yeah.
actively in something what you're seeing on your SOC already. So you can enhance, you can start with it.
Yeah, I think, and I think the key part you are saying is, sir, the existing SOC can be enriched with this kind of capability and helping them to remediate to the extent that we just discussed in this discussion, and more importantly, also help them to identify or hunt the threats basically that could create a potential problem, significant problem for them. So,
Absolutely.
Vivek, I
Because
think,
one piece, I'll just take 30 seconds. One piece, which normally gets missed, right? There your tools are, telling you quite a few things, but there are certain things your tools also can't tell you.
yeah,
That's where
yeah,
the human minds come in, and hunt
yeah,
them down in
yeah.
the haystack that we were talking about,
Yeah,
Vinayak.
and this helps you to do that hunting quite effectively,
Exactly.
basically. And I
Exactly.
think,
Exactly.
uh, and thanks in a very short and listed way, Vivek, you could help us understand how the evaluation, architectural evaluations, and the overall platformization that plays in this, and the role that EDR plays into the larger managed detection response. Really, thanks for joining us today and helping our audience understand this concept in a very practical sense and a larger architectural sense as well. And thank you for the team CrowdStrike also helping to set up this particular interaction, and the audience as well for those couple of good questions to make this engagement or discussion more engaging. Thank you, Vivek and CrowdStrike team.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Thank you so
Vivek.
much. And all the best for the rest of the event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek and Vinayak, for a thought through discussion and giving a perspective on a robust endpoint defense mechanism for a larger security ecosystem. We would request the delegates to stay tuned for the next set of discussions on automating network security, tools, technologies, solutions, and frameworks. The session is scheduled at 3:30 p.m. IST on the same stage.